All right, so buckle up because today we're diving into a life story that's wild. I mean, really wild.
Yeah.
More roller coaster than Biography. We're tackling Donald Trump.
All right.
And here's the thing. Get this. Our main source
Okay.
is Learn English Through Story, Donald Trump's biography.
Interesting.
Not your typical political deep dive source material.
Definitely not what I expected, but I kind of like it.
Yeah. That's what makes this interesting.
Totally.
We're going beyond the, the typical love 'em or hate 'em headlines.
I'm sure.
And trust me, this source, it's got some surprising details.
Right.
Even for those who think they know, like everything about Trump's story.
Absolutely. It really does.
So
it highlights how much his early life shaped his whole trajectory. It really emphasizes his privileged upbringing in Queens.
So we're talking like silver spoon kind of thing?
Oh, yeah. I mean, born into a wealthy family, his father was already a successful real estate developer.
Okay, so not your average starting point.
Definitely not.
So we've got a kid who grows up watching dad making deals in New York real estate, but then, boom, 13 years old.
Young Donald
Gets shipped off
to military school.
to New York Military Academy.
Wow.
What do you think? I mean, did that instill discipline?
That's the question.
Yeah.
Did it amplify traits that were,
Already there.
already there? Who knows?
Right.
The source mentions that he developed, discipline and leadership skills.
Yeah.
There. So, those are certainly themes we see throughout his life. But it's also worth considering if that environment fostered maybe a more confrontational approach
Yeah.
to leadership.
That makes sense. So we have this ambitious kid.
Ambitious, right?
With a military school background.
Yep.
Goes on, studies business at Wharton, then joins, the family business.
Right.
But he doesn't just follow in dad's footsteps.
No, not at all.
Right.
Instead of sticking with, those middle-class housing projects,
Okay.
Trump shifts. The Trump organization's focus toward luxury development.
Interesting.
It's like he wanted to make a statement,
Yeah.
to create something that just screamed success.
I see.
And what better way to do that in New York
And a skyscraper.
than a skyscraper? You're talking about Trump Tower.
Trump Tower.
Of course.
It's more than a building, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It became this larger-than-life symbol of, Trump's ambition.
That's interesting.
This concrete and steel representation of his persona.
Right.
Think about the design choices.
Yeah.
It's all gold
Yeah.
and glitz. Even back then, I mean, he understood
Image branding.
the power of image and branding.
Yeah.
He knew what he was doing.
So speaking of understanding the power of things, we can't skip over the
The B word? The B word. Bankruptcy.
right.
It gets thrown around a lot when we discuss Trump.
Right. It does.
But I think it's worth unpacking it.
Yes, absolutely.
A little bit.
There's this common misconception that bankruptcy equals
Failure.
failure.
Yeah.
Like,
It's all over.
but in the business world,
Yeah.
it can actually be
A tool?
a strategic tool.
Okay.
It's a way to restructure debt, reorganize a business,
And come out
and potentially
stronger.
So it's not always like game over.
Not always game over, no.
So how does that apply to Trump specifically?
Well, Trump's story is interesting.
Yeah.
Because several of his businesses did face,
Financial difficulty.
financial difficulties
That's
leading
tough.
to multiple bankruptcies.
Yeah.
But he consistently positioned those
Yeah.
as strategic moves,
I see.
claiming, he came out on top each time.
Okay, so that's his spin on it.
Exactly. Whether that's entirely accurate,
Right.
that's debatable.
Yeah.
It's definitely something
Worth digging into.
worth looking into.
It really raises questions about, like, how much of his business success is, actual savvy versus
Carefully crafted.
perception. Yeah.
That's a theme I think we should keep in mind
Keep in mind.
as we go through all this.
Absolutely.
Now, 2004,
Okay.
sharp turn away from skyscrapers and boardrooms.
Right.
Trump enters
The world of reality TV.
reality TV.
The Apprentice.
Oh, yeah.
You're fired.
I mean, everybody knows that one.
It's iconic.
It's iconic. It really is, yeah.
We can't talk about Trump's rise without talking about The Apprentice.
No, we can't.
This is where he went from
Well-known businessman.
well-known businessman to, like,
A household name.
household name. Everyone knew who he was.
Everyone, exactly.
And he cultivated this TV persona
Right.
that was both, like, authoritative,
and entertaining.
and entertaining.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it resonated with a much
Broader audience than he'd ever reached before.
So if we're talking about ambition and understanding power, like how to wield that power.
Right.
This shift to television feels almost like calculated.
Calculated.
Like a stepping stone, right?
It's pausing.
It's like he's setting the stage.
It's fascinating to consider how that TV persona with the emphasis on deal making and that winner takes all mentality actually laid the groundwork for his political rhetoric years later.
I see.
It's almost like he was unknowingly
building a base,
creating a platform to launch a political career.
Which is exactly what he did.
They did.
In 2015.
2015.
Jumps headfirst into the presidential race.
Yeah.
And it's really striking to me that the source points out his campaign focused on immigration, trade, and national security.
Interesting.
Like those themes.
It all ties back.
Tied directly back to his business background.
To his business. Yeah, it's a clear through line, isn't it?
It is,
He framed these, really complex issues through this lens of
Diaz.
A negotiation.
Yeah.
Very similar language to what we saw on The Apprentice.
So it's like he's speaking the same language.
Exactly. And for a certain segment of the population, that resonated.
Oh, yeah.
Powerfully. I mean, they saw him as this strong leader, a deal maker who could, fix America's problems.
In the same way he'd fixed.
In the same way he had supposedly fixed.
Right, supposedly.
His businesses.
Which is an interesting point, right?
Yeah, definitely.
But
of course.
Of course.
His presidency, as the source puts it, became highly controversial.
You think?
I mean, that feels like
an understatement?
A bit of an understatement.
Maybe a little bit.
It wasn't just about policies.
No, it was everything. His approach.
His whole approach.
His communication style. His willingness to break with tradition.
Yeah. So much to unpack there. We definitely need to unpack that.
In part 2.
Of this deep dive.
Yes.
But we can't forget about the
2 impeachments.
The 2 impeachments.
Huge.
Those are
events that will forever be linked.
To his presidency.
To his presidency, yeah.
I mean, unprecedented time.
Unprecedented.
In American politics.
Absolutely.
So, just to remind everyone, the first impeachment stemmed from allegations that he pressured Ukraine to investigate his political rival.
A big no-no.
Yeah. And then the second impeachment related to
the January 6th
Capitol riot.
Yeah. And in both cases, he was acquitted. By the Senate. It's crucial to remember, though, acquittal doesn't equal innocence.
What? It just means
there weren't enough votes.
For a conviction.
Yeah.
But even though he was acquitted, I mean, those impeachments were incredibly
divisive, revealing, those deep
political fault lines
in American society.
Yeah.
And it's hard to deny, the impact it had on his legacy.
For sure. I mean, they raised serious questions about the limits of presidential power.
So the role of truant.
In politics.
Yeah, and just fragility of democratic institutions. Big stuff. Okay, so
we went from
privileged upbringing, military school, real estate to reality TV.
From Trump Tower
to the Oval Office.
To impeachments.
Woo. It's a lot. It's a lot to process, right?
It really is.
It is. And what's
striking to me is how each of these phases of Trump's life seem to build on the one before it. There's this clear sense of ambition, this drive to succeed, this willingness to take risks, and this undeniable ability to command attention.
Yeah, he knows how to capture the spotlight.
He does.
Yeah.
And whether you admire him or you revile him, you can't deny that he's
a force
to be reckoned with.
Yeah. And that's why we're doing this deep dive.
Right. It's not about
telling you what to think.
Telling anyone what to think. No.
About Donald Trump.
No,
it's about equipping you with
a deeper
understanding
of how he became who he is.
Yeah.
We've only just scratched the surface here.
Absolutely.
There's so much more to unpack.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to his presidency and its lasting impact.
Yeah, and that's what we'll be tackling.
In part 2.
In the next part of our deep dive.
Can't wait.
So stay tuned because things are about to get
even more interesting.
Interesting.
Looking forward to it.
It'll be fascinating to explore, those later chapters and consider the implications for the future.
Absolutely, yeah.
Future.
It's funny, picking up where we left off.
Yeah.
It's almost mind-boggling how The Apprentice seems to foreshadow so much of Trump's political approach.
It really does.
It's wild.
It does, and that's before we even get into his actual policies.
Right.
Our source mentions that even though this biography was written before the 2024 election, it stops right before that point in his story.
Oh, interesting.
It's kind of a cliffhanger.
Yeah, a little bit.
Which makes me wonder, how much will the passage of time affect how history remembers his presidency?
That's a great question.
And
it's so hard to say.
It feels too soon.
Way too soon.
To say for sure what his lasting impact will be. But I think it's safe to say his supporters will likely
remain steadfast.
And his critics probably won't be changing their opinions anytime soon.
Probably not, no.
So?
That's what makes studying history so compelling, though.
Yeah.
It's constantly being shaped and reshaped by new events, new perspectives.
Okay, so before we jump into the big legacy question, let's go back to his actual time in office.
Sure.
The source describes his presidency as highly controversial.
That feels like...
Which feels like...
a little bit of an understatement.
A bit of an understatement.
Just a tab.
It does. But even putting aside specific policies, think about his communication style.
Oh, completely different.
He used Twitter like no other president before him.
Right. I mean, he bypassed traditional media.
Went straight to the public.
Spoke directly to the public. Yeah. And that directness, combined with, often provocative language, it really shook things up.
It felt like every day there was a new tweet or a new soundbite.
Grabbing headlines.
Yeah, and fueling debate.
Yeah, it's a constant whirlwind.
It was.
And you can't deny that he kept everyone on their toes.
He did, for sure.
It also brought up questions about, the role of truth in politics.
Truth in politics, big one.
And how information or misinformation gets disseminated in...
the age of social media.
Really changed things.
For sure. And speaking of controversy.
Oh, boy.
We have to address the elephant in the room.
Or the donkey.
Yeah. Those two impeachments.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
These are landmark events.
In
American political history.
Yeah, huge. To recap for our listener.
Right. Just as a reminder.
The first impeachment centered around allegations that Trump pressured Ukraine to dig up dirt on his political rival.
Huge no-no.
Big no-no.
And then the second impeachment was directly linked to the events of January 6th.
Right.
And the attack on the Capitol.
And while he was acquitted by the Senate in both cases.
Acquitted.
Which is a point the source emphasizes.
Yeah, the source really emphasizes that.
It's important to remember that acquittal doesn't necessarily mean innocence.
Doesn't mean innocence, right?
It just means there weren't enough votes.
For conviction.
And
even the impeachment trials themselves.
Oh, yeah.
Incredibly
divisive,
highlighting, just how deeply polarized
the country had become
during his presidency.
Yeah, we're seeing the repercussions of that polarization even now.
Yeah.
Years later.
And it's
like his presidency threw a grenade into the political landscape.
It really is.
And the fragments are still flying.
That's a powerful image.
It is. And it makes you think, how do his actions continue to shape the political discourse?
Okay, so we explored his path to the presidency. We've touched on
some of the defining moments.
Of his time in office. What about legacy?
That's the question.
What happens next?
Big question.
It is, and it's one that historians and political analysts will be grappling with.
Oh, for years.
For years to come.
For sure.
Our source concludes by saying that Trump's story is a testament to taking risks and bouncing back from failures.
Interesting.
But is that an accurate, an objective assessment?
Is that really all there is to it?
I don't think it's that simple.
No, I don't either.
Yes, he's taken risks, and he has this undeniable ability to bounce back from setbacks.
Right.
That would crush
other people.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
But it's crucial to look beyond those surface level observations.
Absolutely.
And examine the actual consequences.
Right. The impact.
Of his actions, both positive and negative.
Yeah.
For example, his supporters often point to
His economic policies.
His economic policies as a success.
Right.
They'll say, he created jobs.
Boosted the stock market.
Boosted the stock market.
Made America more competitive on the world stage.
And those claims need to be scrutinized.
Absolutely.
Weighed against the evidence. Did those policies actually benefit everyone, or did they primarily benefit the wealthy?
Right. Did they come at a cost to the environment or social programs?
These are the kinds of questions we need to be asking.
Absolutely.
When we evaluate his legacy.
You're sure, yeah.
It's about separating the rhetoric
from the reality.
Exactly. And looking at the actual impact.
The actual impact
of his decision.
It's not just about economics. We have to consider the impact of his rhetoric on, social and political discourse.
Mm-hmm. Like, did his divisive language and attacks on institutions
erode trust in democracy?
Did they embolden extremist groups?
These are big questions.
Heavy questions.
Unfortunately, we don't have all the answers yet.
We don't.
But what we can do is continue to
analyze, debate,
learn from this
tumultuous period
in American history.
Because understanding the past is the key to navigating the present. And shaping the future.
That's a great way to put it. We can't just sweep his presidency under the rug.
No.
And pretend it didn't happen.
We can't.
We have to engage with it.
Learn from it.
Yeah. And use those lessons.
To build a better future. So with all of this in mind, what do you think will be the lasting impact of Donald Trump?
Oh, that's the $1 million question.
Right.
And I don't have a crystal ball.
If only.
But I do think it's safe to say his impact will be felt for generations to come.
I think so too.
Whether that impact is ultimately positive or negative.
Right.
That's something we'll have to continue to debate.
Yeah, continue.
And analyze as time goes on.
It's an ongoing process.
It is. It's fascinating.
And that's what makes it so fascinating. We're not just talking about one man's life.
No.
We're talking about
a turning point.
In
American history.
And it's
a turning point that we're all still living through.
Yeah, still living through. It's amazing. We've covered so much ground, but I keep coming back to something our source said.
What's that?
About Trump's story being a testament to ambition, resilience, and controversy.
Oh, yes.
It's like those three words.
They're intertwined.
They're just woven into the very fabric of his being.
I think it's that combination of ambition, that drive to succeed no matter what, mixed with that undeniable resilience, his ability to bounce back from setbacks.
Yeah.
That would crush other people.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It makes him captivating. It really does.
He's a captivating figure.
You can't look away.
You can't, no.
He thrives on the controversy.
There's definitely an element of that.
Yeah.
Think about it. His communication style.
Yeah.
His use of social media. He knows
how to get attention.
How to grab attention, how to provoke a reaction.
And whether you love him or hate him,
right?
You can't deny that he's a master of
manipulating the media. Oh, yeah.
He changed the rules of the game, didn't he?
Completely.
Not just in politics, but in business and entertainment, too.
He blurred the lines between those worlds.
Yeah, he really did.
Using his celebrity status to amplify his political message and his political platform to further his business interests.
It's like he created his own ecosystem.
His own world
where
the traditional rules don't apply.
So where does that leave us? What does it all mean?
That's the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, we're still too close.
Too close to these events.
To the events of his presidency.
To fully grasp it.
To fully understand the long-term consequences.
But we can't just sit back and wait for history to judge him.
No, we can't.
Engage with the complexities of his legacy, even if it's uncomfortable.
Absolutely. I agree. We need to have those difficult conversations. Yeah. Analyze the evidence and learn from both his successes.
And his failures. Because whether you admire him or despise him, Donald Trump has left his mark.
He's left his mark.
On American history.
Undeniably.
And understanding his story is essential to understanding the world we live in.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It really is. His rise to power, his presidency, even his post-presidency life. They're all reflections of larger trends in American society.
Right.
Like the distrust of institutions.
Yeah.
The rise of social media. And the deepening political divide.
It's all connected.
It is.
So what can our listener take away from all of this?
I think the biggest takeaway is that we can't afford to be passive.
Right.
We have to be active participants in shaping the future.
Active participants.
Of our democracy, we have to engage in thoughtful debate. We have to hold our leaders accountable.
Hold them accountable.
We have to demand better.
Demand better.
From those who seek to represent us.
We've only scratched the surface.
We have. But hopefully this deep dive
has sparked some curiosity.
Has sparked your curiosity to learn more?
Yeah, I mean...
So much out there.
There are countless books.
Articles, documentaries.
Yeah, all offering different
perspectives.
Perspectives?
On Trump's life and legacy. Keep exploring. Keep questioning.
Keep learning.
And most importantly, keep thinking for yourself.
That's a wrap for our deep dive into the life and legacy of Donald Trump.
That's it for today.
We'd love to hear your thoughts, share your takeaways.
Yeah, let us know.
Your questions, anything that resonated with you.
Until next time.
Keep diving deep.